here. Hi, I'm Carter Clews. Welcome to Inside Judicial Watch. Today we have a very special program because we have with us one of the nation's leading investigative editors. He is a gentleman whom I have known for, Mark, it's been almost 40 years
40
now.
years.
It's a long time. When we first started out together in Washington, Mark worked directly with Ronald Reagan. He went on to become the national editor at the Washington Times, editorial page editor at the Washington Examiner. Now he is the executive editor at the Daily Caller Foundation, which, by the way, if you don't go to the Daily Caller on a daily basis, you're missing the inside information about what really goes on in the nation's capital. So, Mark, welcome to Inside Judicial Watch.
Great to be here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. We have one of the reasons I asked Mark, in addition to the fact of his widespread knowledge of how Washington works, is that Judicial Watch just joined with the Daily Caller to file a Freedom of Information lawsuit concerning James Comey. Mr. Comey, Mark, reminds me of Churchill's statement about one of his opponents, that occasionally he stumbles across the truth, but then he picks himself up and hurries on as if nothing happened.
As if nothing happened,
yeah.
Right.
Let me read you the lead of the news release we did on the lawsuit, and then we're going to ask Mark to go into detail on us as to why the Daily Caller, one of the most prestigious newspapers in America, joined us in this lawsuit. Judicial Watch announced today that it filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit on behalf of the Daily Caller News Foundation against the U.S. Department of Justice, seeking memoranda allegedly written by former FBI Director James Comey regarding his discussions with President Donald Trump and Trump's aides. Mark, why did the Daily Caller join in this lawsuit? What's going on here?
Well, this is actually about the, 10th or 12th time in the last 6 or 7 years that we've partnered with Judicial Watch in seeking to bring out to the public one kind of document or information or another. We haven't always been successful, but right. Judicial Watch is more successful than any of the other groups that do this kind of thing. The Comey Memos are, we've been here for 40 years, and the idea that an FBI director was making memos to himself about conversations that he had with, frankly, any senior official in the government, much less the President of the United States, is unsettling, to say the least. And in this particular case, given the circumstances with the Clinton email scandal, the Russiagate scandal, where Comey just pops up over and over and over again, it's not widely known, but he even investigated the Clinton Foundation when he was, I believe, deputy director of the FBI under Bob Mueller back in 2001 to 2004.
An investigation that went nowhere.
That went nowhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Not,
that we know of.
Yes.
Not that we know of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we've been trying to get these. There are actually, that we know of, there are 7 memos. 4 of them are classified, so we're not going to get those. But the other 3 are unclassified. And something that has not been widely discussed, but one of the reasons why we decided to pursue this is because if Comey wrote memos about conversations with the president, that raises all kinds of questions about who else did he have conversations with, about what. Presumably those conversations, memos of conversations, were done on government time, on a government laptop, and they are public documents. So the public has a right to know.
The public has a right to know, and it's an excellent point about them being on government laptops and being government documents. The gentleman, Comey, we have 4 lawsuits. We have 4 lawsuits trying to pry these memos loose. And here is what is just so absolutely galling, that the FBI and Comey will not give those memos to the American people, frankly, in violation of the directives of the Freedom of Information Act. And yet he sneaked them out. he sneaked them, this is the director of the FBI, sneaked them out to his buddy so that the New York Times could have them in order to undermine the president. And let's be clear, when I say in order to undermine the president, I'm not trying to imply, I'm not trying to read his mind, because he said—
It's not necessary.
He said that's why I did it.
Right.
He said that's why I did it.
You know, one of the most interesting things about that particular, the leak incident is, why did he think it necessary, at least when he was actually doing it, to have a beard? You know, he at that point, he must have not wanted people to know that he was the leaker, which, when you think about it, it's official policy in the FBI that you don't leak documents or information about unclosed investigations. So he knew he was breaking the FBI policy. Maybe that's why he wanted a beard. He didn't want people to know. Then you have to ask yourself, well, why did he decide to talk about it before Congress? It's one of these Washington scandals that we know about this much about it, and below it, it's like the iceberg. You know, and we want to find out what's there.
We want to find out what's there. You and I have been in Washington long enough to know that in Washington, nothing is as it appears to be.
Absolutely.
Nothing is as it appears to be. Speaking of Comey's testimony before Congress, you recall what Comey told Congressman Radcliffe when he asked him point blank, did you, before your July 5th press conference in which you let Hillary walk, let her skate, did you, had you made any decisions as to the direction in which you were going to go?
He said no. He said no.
He said no. And Mark quotes him directly. That was what he said.
That was his
no.
answer. Yeah.
That was his whole answer.
Yeah.
No.
And he said it with apparent conviction.
With apparent conviction. He's very good at apparent conviction.
Yeah.
We now know because of, well, tell our viewers what happened on August 30th with Senator Grassley.
Now, there's been so many incidents with Chuck Grassley. Which particular one are you talking about?
The release where he said that Comey had actually concluded his investigation.
Oh, absolutely. Okay.
Here we go. Yeah.
The remarkable thing, another remarkable thing about this is that there may be some law that I don't know about that is more basic, more fundamental than the idea that you don't reach a conclusion in a case before you've got all of the evidence and before you've interviewed everybody and tied all the loose ends together. Who's telling the truth, who's contradicting, what matches, what doesn't match. That went out the window.
Went out the window.
Absolutely out the window. And that's, in my experience and my knowledge of American history, that's unprecedented.
Unprecedented. We now know that in April or May, he had already arrived at his conclusion.
Yep. I suspect, and he will be asked about this because under oath before Congress, because Lindsey Graham smells a rat.
That's right. Lindsey said he smells a rat.
I can tell the senator that there's more than one, but he will be asked about it under oath. And my guess is he's going to say, well, this was just a draft, and therefore I had not made up my mind, but I wanted to begin moving in that direction, or something like that. And if he says that, I won't be surprised, because so much of what Comey and so many other people in this town have done for so long is illustrate why most Americans don't trust Washington, because it's always slick, but you never know if it's the truth or not. And there's always more to the story, which makes my career interesting, but people need to know the full truth.
Well, we know that in terms of whether he was really investigating, his memos he circulated inside the FBI that he was going to exonerate the woman came out before he interviewed the woman, before he took her testimony. And let's be sure to point out, Hillary Clinton was interviewed one time, interrogated one time under oath, and that was by, as our members know, Judicial Watch.
Judicial Watch, right.
The FBI under Comey did not even put her under oath.
Well, the FBI also granted immunity to Cheryl Mills, Huma Abedin, I believe,
Right. Yep.
And several other of her key aides. That to me, in one sense, is more significant as an indicator of the quality of the investigation or the lack thereof. Because if you're granting the major witnesses, you know, one, you can kind of understand that because you get leverage with the others. But when you give immunity to all of the potential major witnesses, you're not really looking for the truth. You're looking for a way to not find it.
To not find the truth. Yeah. To not find the truth. And in a way, see if you agree with me on this, in a way it's not surprising on many accounts that Comey conducted such a shoddy investigation. For one thing, as your own reporter, who's one of my favorite reporters, by the way, Carrie Pickett, pointed out in her article last October, Comey lied when he said, "I've been an investigator."
Right.
Comey was never an investigator.
He's a bureaucrat.
He was a bureaucrat.
Right.
He was a bureaucrat, then he left being a bureaucrat to go make a whole bunch of money on the outside, and then he was appointed to be a bureaucrat again. Yeah. And as Carrie Pickett's article, and whenever you see Carrie's byline, by the way, folks, read it because she's excellent. She pointed out that the FBI agent she interviewed very thoroughly said Comey stood in the way of the investigation.
Yeah, yeah. I should tell you about Carrie Pickett. She works on the Daily Caller side. My investigative guys are on the Daily Caller News Foundation side. Right. We're separate. But I can tell you this about Carrie Pickett, that when a number of members of Congress, senators, congressmen, and so forth, see her coming, they turn around and go the other way.
I can understand why. She's absolutely excellent, and she uncovers tremendous material. Let's talk about, so we know that Comey conducted a non-investigation. Essentially, that's it. And then when he gave his July, I think it was July 5th, press conference, where he announced, oh, yeah, she did this wrong, she did that wrong, on and on and on. You said to yourself, boy, this woman's in trouble. And he finished up by saying, so we're letting her off the hook. Turned around and walked away from the podium. He misled the American people as to the nature of the law that she violated, right?
He fundamentally ignored it. They didn't simply mislead it. The law on classification and the handling of classified documents is absolutely crystal clear. It doesn't matter whether or not you intended to do something wrong with the documents. It's only a factual question of whether or not you mishandled them. And by Comey's description, she did, over and over and over.
Over and over and over again. Very few people, we have an investigative reporter who's also fantastic, Irene Garcia, Corruption Chronicles. I know many of you read it. She is the one who revealed the information about Brian Neri-Mishu. I probably butchered his name, if so, if he happens to be watching, I apologize. But this is a young man who, in Afghanistan, put some classified information on an unsecured.
Right.
You remember that story?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And what'd Comey do? Did he say, oh, it was an accident, no harm done? No.
I'm glad I'm not Brian.
Yes, exactly. Landed on him with both feet.
Yep.
The guy ended up having to plead guilty, got 2 years probation, $7,500 fine, and his security clearance revoked.
Which means his career has probably been, as far as government service and certainly in the intelligence community, is gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. So when a soldier, when one of our soldiers who served in Afghanistan had some minor documents on a computer that was unsecured, Comey decided that person violated the law. When Hillary Clinton, we know because of Judicial Watch's work, Daily Caller Foundation's work, had hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands, we don't know, she's covered up 30,000 of her emails, on an unsecure server. He said, no harm done. Oh, it was an accident.
Yeah. Even though it's pretty clear that at least 5 foreign powers accessed that server and its contents. You know, it's a serious scandal. I should point out for the audience that this is not simply a matter of get Comey or get Hillary Clinton.
No.
It's absolutely not that. What it is get the facts. When I first got into investigative reporting, after I was in the Reagan administration, the first really serious scandal that I went after was about a major Reagan appointee. I was convinced that this individual was using a government position to enrich himself and his political cronies. I was never able to prove it, but to this day, I'm absolutely convinced that that's what was happening. And I learned what I really already knew, but it was just emphasized in my own mind. Party labels don't matter. What matters are the facts. Did they or did they not do X? That's what journalism, investigative journalism, is supposed to be about. What are the facts?
What are the facts?
Yeah.
And the facts of the matter are she had unclassified information on a computer that she had repeatedly been told not to use.
Not to do.
Repeatedly not to do.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a matter of her not understanding. She, a matter of fact, with the most recent disclosures that we have, she laughs about the security hawks, telling her don't use her BlackBerry. That's very funny because it's not so.
One of my reporters, Richard Pollack, who is just an incredibly good reporter. He was, I believe, I'm pretty sure, the first journalist to report that. In fact, we were only able to do this because of a suit that you guys helped us with, filed on our behalf. She didn't do the required training for handling classified information. So
she just skipped it.
The law doesn't apply to her.
The law doesn't apply to her.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Clinton Foundation. Mr. Comey, while he decided that we had to go after Mr. Trump, didn't seem to show much taste for going after the Clinton Foundation.
That's, as I mentioned earlier, in his prior position at the FBI, he was at the top of, or deeply involved with an investigation of the Clinton Foundation between 2001 and 2004. Nothing happened. We've done a tremendous amount of investigating and reporting on the Clinton Foundation. And that particular period, we're convinced, based on the evidence, was crucial to the development of the Clinton Foundation as a systematic, international, charitable fraud. And if they don't like my description of that,
wow,
let's have some questions answered, because we've got lots of them about the Clinton Foundation.
The Clinton Foundation, now correct me if I'm wrong, but when one of the times when Mr. Comey went into private industry, he worked for Lockheed Martin.
Yes.
Lockheed Martin, according to the Clinton Foundation's records, was a major, major contributor to the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah. Basically, anybody who, any major interest in this town that wants to have a voice, if you will, or to have influence in the event that the Clintons are in a position to make decisions that could be of importance to them, they've contributed to the Clinton Foundation.
Mr. Comey worked with HSBC.
Yes.
And
yes.
And HSBC was also
massive fines
with the Clinton Foundation.
Yes.
And Mr. Comey had no appetite for going after the Clinton Foundation, apparently.
No. Lots of questions.
Lots of questions that desperately need to be answered. That's why we have the Daily Caller Foundation
and Judicial Watch.
And Judicial Watch. Yes. And as Judicial Watch supporters know about Judicial Watch and now know about the Daily Caller Foundation, neither one is going to stop until we get to the truth.
No, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate your being here, and thank you very much for joining us today. We'll see you next week.